Good afternoon, everybody. It's 1:30. Almost exactly. How about that for prompt? I'm impressed with myself. I'm Karen Curitin. I'm a social media coach, and today I'm live with Tracy Duggan from Skills Local. Good afternoon, Tracy.
Good afternoon, Karen. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. I've just delivered a 3-hour workshop on presenting online for healthcare professionals. Who'd have thought they'd be interested? You can just never tell, can't you? You just never tell.
Interested in social media nowadays, to be fair.
Well, I mean, fully enough, this session was all about presentation skills and using Zoom to make your presentations, workshops, everything, webinars more engaging and interesting. And it was a really interesting session. So you and I have been connected for quite some time, but we actually sort of properly met at an FSB event earlier this year, I seem to remember.
Yeah, we did. That was quite a busy event, wasn't it? There were about 30, 40 people at that. That was a proper speed networking.
It was. And funny enough, one of the tips that I shared today, because at the end of the session, I said, what you're going to stop doing, what you're going to start doing, what you're going to change as a result of the tips I've shared with you. And one of the tips I shared was about wearing a bright colour, because if there's a lot of people on a screen at one time, then the person who's wearing the bright colours is going to stand out. So I've still got my bright coloured cardigan on, which is very rock and roll, isn't it? But hey ho.
It looks lovely though. Really suits you.
Thank you. So Tracy, for those people that are tuning in, and if anybody's joining us, please comment, say hello. I know a lot of people watch these on replay. For those people that don't know you, do you want to tell us a little bit about Skills Local and what you do and who you work with?
Yeah, absolutely. So I set up my business 6 years ago, actually in April. So it's my 6th anniversary coming up, which I'm really looking forward to celebrate. And I'm actually celebrating that with a brand new brand redesign of Skills Local, because obviously the business has changed quite a lot since then. Originally, I set the business up to support organisations with skills projects, so working with training providers and really using my skills that I gained over the past sort of 30 years in industry. And obviously, the world has changed quite a bit since I did that. But it's been a whirlwind, and I think a really important aspect of my business is the people side. And that's the thing that hasn't changed. People are still at the heart of what I do, and drive everything that all my improvements, any business opportunities. It's always to do with how we can work with and how we can support individuals, leaders, teams, organizations. And one of my strategies early on in business was to find a way in which I could really keep the business going and ticking over. Because we all know when you first start a business how challenging that is, and not knowing where the next business opportunity is coming from.
Isn't that great? Isn't it great? Let me just mute myself.
That wasn't me. Never mind. Oh, you've gone silent now. I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I just need to pick this up. Give me a second.
Must be emergency. Must be.
This is, and I said this on my presentation this morning, why does the phone not ring all day and the deliveries don't arrive till you're online and live? But hey, what does it do, Tracy? It shows that we're human.
Do you know what it is, Karen? Sod's law.
It is. So sorry, you were saying about how your business and the changes that you've had to make.
Yeah, so the changes, and I think the key thing for me is making sure that people remain at the heart of it, and sort of trying to identify a strategy that would allow me to have that consistent business that ticks over. So one of the first things I did was to train as an Investors in People practitioner. And that's been great. And I work with some fantastic clients delivering the standard. And that is all about making sure that organisations are great places to work for people. So that's kind of the start of the journey, really, into sort of organisational development, health and well-being. And that's how kind of the business has developed, if you like, with that passion for people.
Gosh, and when you train to do that, what sort of things? I mean, I know about investors and people, but what sort of training did you have to go through to do that?
It was quite in depth. There was 2 4-day sessions where we had to go through the standard. So you had a really good, rigorous understanding of what the standard was. I was quite lucky that 30 years ago when I started in work, one of my first jobs was as an investors in people advisor, but obviously the standard had changed quite a lot. So it was really getting my teeth underneath what the changes were, and I loved the new standard because it was all about continuous improvement and business improvement, and at the heart of that is your people.
Absolutely.
So it fitted really well for me. So there was 8 days of training. And we also had to do 2 assessments, which were observed and shadowed by an experienced practitioner. So you were really put through, making sure it was proper rigorous assessment. So you knew what you were doing. And it's been a real sort of journey. And certainly from my point of view, I can see how I've developed over that period of time, and just my knowledge at what makes a business great. Has really,
and I think there are so many organisations have such a short-term view about investing in their people, because, and in fact, my husband and I were talking about this the other day about the cost it takes to recruit somebody.
Exactly.
To get somebody in, it's the cost and it's the time, and time's probably our most expensive resource because we're always short of it. And I think if organisations could become more cognizant of that and to recognize the importance of the people, it's not the banner over the door, it's the people inside that make the difference, isn't it?
Absolutely. Well, it's the people inside the business that drive your business. Ultimately they're your customer face generally. So if you haven't got that right, you are gonna struggle.
So let's talk about the elephant in the room, what's happened in the last year. And part of the reasons I love doing these lives is finding out how people's businesses have changed and responded. Because I remember saying a year ago that how we behave in the coming months would dictate the success of our relationships with our customers, with our friends and family, but also about the success of our business. And I think a lot of businesses just sort of shut up shop, stopped, didn't do anything, and didn't move forward. What changes did you make to your business?
Well, I'd already started to pivot. So I was already doing a CIPD qualification. So that's a professional qualification for Chartered Institute of Personnel Development. So I was already on that journey. I'd already signed up to a Women in Leadership program, which was at Nottingham Trent University, and I was coming to the end of that. And then all of a sudden, everything stopped. So all of the work that I was doing for investors, even that stopped, because businesses had to take stock. Businesses had to really think, what does it mean for me, and how can we move forward? Because we didn't know, did we, at that point in time, what was going to happen. So I had a bit of a quiet spell, and I used that time to really rethink what I wanted to do. And I retrained. So I trained in a standard called RAW, which is Workplace Resilience and Wellbeing. And that's all about supporting individuals, teams and leaders to be as resilient as they could be. And it was perfect timing because of the pandemic. I also signed up to a barefoot coaching qualification. So I've now got my ACC accreditation, which was huge. But for me, it was amazing because I was able to do lots of pro bono work during the quiet months. So I've actually built up my hours around that, which allowed me to get that accreditation. And I've still got my PG certification to do, but that's at Chester University. So I'm still on that learning journey.
And I think we are. I think anybody that does any sort of people development, improvement, training, we are constantly learning. So tell me what you're working on now.
So I've got the PG certificate to do. I'm doing all sorts of other things. Group coaching is probably my passion at the moment. I'm working with a couple of senior leadership teams around. So one of them is bringing a team together, a new senior team they've been through a reorganisation and they're coming back together. So it's helping them to work out, what does that look like? What does that mean for them in this landscape of, sort of pre-COVID? I mean, it's such a challenge, isn't it, for everybody? So that's a really fascinating piece of work. And I'm also delivering a couple of peer networks for the D2N2 Growth Hub. And that's been a lovely piece of work, working with some smaller businesses and supporting them with their resilience. So all of those have had a workplace resilience and wellbeing assessment, and we've used that as part of a coaching. So they get some one-to-one support, but they also get 18 hours of group coaching together, and sort of seeing that bond that they've developed is fascinating.
And if I understand the peer networks, this is funded development, isn't it?
Yeah, it's funded through BAE. So they ran a pilot, which was a national pilot. And D2N2 Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire were lucky to get part of that that funding. I think there were 25 networks altogether from different sectors, different makeups of businesses, and the results have been phenomenal.
And that is brilliant. And you must have seen, I suppose, firsthand working with these small businesses, because as a solopreneur myself, I'm really grateful and truly lucky that my business has been relatively unaffected. But what are you hearing from these businesses about the impact of COVID and lockdown on them?
Well, it depends on the business. I've got one of my cohorts is a retail cohort. So depending on where they were in the retail, whether they were deemed as essential or non-essential, makes a big difference. But it's amazing how those that were non-essential have really pivoted to get online, to do that sort of click and collect type work. So they're really starting to think of different ways in which they can do business. And it's quite interesting, actually, because last night we had a specialist guest come to the session. And they were talking about how to sort of reopen after COVID. So obviously we've got the dates now, we've got the timelines. Yay. So there was quite a buzz in the room, actually. It was really exciting. Really nice to see that, there's some optimism out there. Going to be some changes, in how we do things, because there's still going to be social distancing, still going to need to wear masks, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I know it's fascinating.
It is. And I think, like a lot of people, I am so desperate for the 12th of April, never mind anything else, a haircut. Even my 15-year-old said to me today, "Mum, when do the hairdressers open again?" And I think I think it's been really quite inspiring how a lot of businesses have made the change. Right, the restaurants that are doing the social distance Sunday lunches, picking up our local town in Ashby. We've got a great pizza restaurant there, and they have it so well set up. You go, you order it, you have a table allocated to you that you pick up your food from, you pay contactless. And this time last year, they didn't even take cards at the pizza takeaway, and now they've totally changed. And I think I would like to think that some of these changes are for the better, but the impact that you must have seen, and I know that we talked about the well-being of these people. What can people do? What sort of tips would you offer to help people cope when they've got a business and they need to ensure the well-being of their teams and that everybody's motivated? What sort of things would you suggest?
So if we take the RAW framework, which provides a really nice model for supporting yourself, but not only yourself, but also your teams. I think the first important thing is to actually look after yourself.
Yeah.
Make sure that you're getting plenty of sleep, Make sure you're getting plenty of rest and time to look after yourself, because we know that in this challenging time, we're all on Zoom so much, aren't we? So we tend not to take the breaks that we used to take. So making sure that you're taking time out for yourself, looking after yourself in your diet, not drinking too much. And we've all had gin lockdown and prosecco and all of that. And I think it's about making sure that you're using that time, taking time out to exercise, and making sure that your people are as well. So, there's things that you can do as a leader of a business or of a team, is to make sure that your people are taking that time out and making sure they're taking holidays. I know it's not great taking holidays during lockdown, but just making sure you switch off. One of the things I did about 3 months ago, actually, was to switch off all my notifications, because it was starting to just drive me potty, and there was no give up.
Yeah, and it does. And I think that's a really good piece of advice, because we tend not to be very kind to ourselves. And I think and in fact, it came up on this morning's course, is that people aren't as respectful of your personal time because they know you're at home. So I got a contact the other day, suggest a meeting at 6:30 at night. Yeah. Now, they weren't a client. And I said, well, I work a long day anyway. I start work at 8. I finish about 6. I'm sure if it's important to you that we get together, that we can do so within that time.
Yeah,
I don't work evenings. And, I hear it a lot with a lot of the big corporate organizations, and I hear it with the company my husband works with. His teams people will be calling at all sorts of weird and wonderful times, because they know you're there. And I think as individuals, whether you're part of an organization, I think it's really important that you set some boundaries.
Exactly. Boundaries are key, and sort of really with the household as well, making sure that they know what the boundaries are. So you've got that home space and office space, because we're all working from home, aren't we? Or a lot of us are.
Yes, and it is. And I think that's something, just to touch on that, fully enough. I've got a remote office that I go to once a week and work at. And funny enough, the lady who's the manager there was saying that they're getting quite a lot of inquiries, because people got cabin fever. They're sick of being at home, and they want to go and work somewhere else where it feels more like being at work, because that's exactly what we're just saying is, you've got the call I did this morning, very first etiquette that I put out as part of the workshop was minimize your distractions. Yeah. We're on the call, and one of the ladies' cat starts walking backwards and forwards in front of a screen. When I'm sat here, my cat doesn't come near the screen, so I tend to sit here. But if I was in the other room in my office, she would be backwards and forwards in front of the screen. And that's the dilemma, isn't it? Because home and work gets blended.
Yeah, it gets blurred. And I think you picked up on something there, which was going to be my second tip in terms of what else should you do? And it's about having those networks. So it's about having those strong relationships that you can rely on. So I know that networking's gone online, but people are craving that face-to-face again now. And don't dispute that. Getting out and going for a walk, I call that actually a double win, because not only are you getting your exercise, you're also getting your social interaction as well.
I totally agree. I've got a friend who lives 2 villages across, and we met up the other Sunday, midway point, less than 5 miles, picked up a coffee and had a walk, and that did us both the world of good. And it is about looking after yourself. And you're right, because the question I actually asked this morning was, do you have to have an on-screen meeting? Could it not just be a call? I've got a client sent me a Zoom invitation for something that should be a 10-minute phone call this afternoon. And I messaged her earlier and just said, I'm happy to chat, but can we chat on the phone? Because I've got to drive to somewhere. So I can use the time when I'm in the car just to talk things through. And I think we've just got really comfortable with having all of these. And I think Zoom fatigue is a real problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
So have you got another tip for me, Tracy?
Yeah, I think this is kind of what's driven me in my business for the past nearly 6 years. I can say that, can't I now? It's about making sure that you live your values. It's about making sure that what you're actually doing in life, in your work, is actually resonating for you, and that you play into your strengths, because that's what's going to motivate you.
And it is. And also, I think, touching on that, I think that's what will keep you going when things are tough.
Exactly. That's what builds your resilience.
Absolutely. And I know that. And funny enough, I have a whiteboard in my office, and it says right at the top, it says, every experience in life is a lesson to be learned. And I put that up about 7 years ago when we were having some challenges, and that got that mantra. I thought, and I thought the other day, what did that teach me? And it taught me resilience. It taught me about the courage of my own convictions. And somebody put this, I'm in a mastermind group, and somebody put this really well about 6 weeks ago. We were in this group, and I was saying that I struggle to take time off. I love my business. I love my clients. I just love what I do. And they said, but Karen, you are your business. And if you're not looking after yourself, what happens to your business? Exactly. And that's the thing. So in my diary, and other people might find this useful, every day, Monday to Friday, in my diary, I have 45 minutes blocked out of me time when I'm not in front of a screen. And that might be doing a Pilates class, because Zoom Pilates a year ago wouldn't dreamt of it. Doing a HIIT class, reading, having a walk, going to visit my lovely mum because I'm bubbling with my mum and dad, all of those things. And I think just one thing I think I would say, just to wrap this lovely chat up about, because it is important that we take care of ourselves. And I think when we run a business, we've got a responsibility. But also, I think the other thing I would say is, and I said this to somebody yesterday, and she said, I'd never thought about that, is think about what we've learned from the last year. And there's been positives to come out of it. I was saying to somebody the other day, the pleasure that I have of looking out of my kitchen window and seeing the robin come onto the bird feeder. A year ago, people were going, what's wrong with you? What's wrong? Oh, what's all that? What's that about? It's nothing. But actually, that getting back in touch with nature, valuing our walks. At one point, we could only go out for one walk a day. And, you and I are both lucky to live in beautiful parts of the country. We've got great walks on our doorstep. And I said to somebody the other day, I said, imagine you live in a city and you can't really get out.
Yeah. No, I couldn't imagine living in a high-rise flat or anything. That would just be.
And I think that's the thing for me, is I think we need to be grateful for the fact we've made it this far. The end's in sight. So what next then? 6 years in business next month. What's next for Skills Local? Have you got a grand plan?
Well, I've got the rebrand coming, so I'm excited about that. Yeah, that's right. That's kind of, I think it was you that actually made me start thinking about that.
Well, funny enough, this week I've had a discussion about a rebrand.
Wow, amazing. Yeah. No, so I've got the rebrand, and I've also got my eye on another qualification, but I'm not sure yet whether I'm ready to start down that journey just yet. I'm kind of just, I just need to hold back a bit. I need to get my PG certification sorted first. Once I've got that done, then I can start to explore. But I kind of like the idea of doing digital marketing. And again, I think it was probably having one of our one-to-ones that made me start to think there's so much more to this that I want to learn.
There is, and I think, we are probably the pair of us like great big sponges that just love learning new stuff. And I think that's wonderful. Well, Tracy, thank you so much for joining me today.
Pleasure. Lovely to see you, Karen.
Great to speak to you, and I'll speak to you